We are at 7 p.m. on a teleconference. As chairman of the Budget Review Committee, I find that due to the state of emergency declared by the governor as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, and in accordance with the governor's emergency order number 12 pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. Please note that there's no physical location, observe, and listen contemporaneously to this meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, I'm confirming that we are providing public access to the meeting by telephone with additional access possibilities by video or other electronic means. We are utilizing WebEx through the city's IT department for this electronic meeting. All members of the Budget Review Committee have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during this meeting through this platform. And the public has access to contemporaneously listen to the meeting through the following number: 1-978-990-5298 and using the password 273974. The public may also view this meeting on Comcast channel 16. We provided public notice of the necessary information for accessing the meeting. We previously gave notice to the public of the necessary information for accessing the meeting through the public postings. Instructions have also been provided on the City of Nashua's website at www.nashua.nh.gov and publicly noticed at City Hall. We are providing a mechanism for the public to alert the public body during the meeting if there are problems with access. If anyone has problem accessing the meeting via phone or channel 16, please call 603-821-2049 and they will help you connect. We will adjourn the meeting if we are unable to have the public access the meeting. In the event the public is unable to access the meeting via the methods mentioned above, the meeting will be adjourned and rescheduled. Please note that all votes that are taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call. Let's start the meeting by taking a roll call attendance. When each member states their presence, please also state whether there is anyone in the room with you during this meeting, which is required under the right to know law. Ensure that you can hear us and why you are attending remotely. Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Alderwoman at Large Shoshana Kelley.
I am here. I'm alone, and I'm attending remotely due to the governor's order.
Alderman at Large Michael O'Brien is present. I can hear the proceedings. I am alone and I'm following the governor's guidelines of self-distancing. Alderman at Large Laurie Wilshire.
I'm here. I can hear you. I'm practicing social distancing and I am alone.
Alderman Ernest Jetty.
I'm here. I'm alone and I'm staying home in accordance with the governor's order.
Alderman Jan Schmidt.
I am present. I can hear you. I'm alone and obeying the governor's order to stay at home.
Alderman at Large Ben Clemens.
I am here. I'm by myself and I am staying at home per the governor's order.
And Chairman Alderman Richard A. Dowd.
Yes, I am here alone. I can hear everyone, and I'm practicing social distancing in accordance with the governor's order.
Mr. Chairman, all 7 voting members of the Budget Committee are present. Is there any other alderman present that I did not call? Alderman Lou, I see you.
Alderman Lopez.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
Alderman Clee.
Okay, so far I have Alderman Lou, Alderman Lopez, Alderman Clee. Any other alderman? Okay. Mr. Chairman, also in attendance is Mayor Donkus, CFO Griffin.
Yep.
And let me see. Deputy Chief Casaverdi, NPD, Assistant Chief George Walker of NFR, and various
Karen
members
S-
of the staff when I can see.
Karen Smith is on. The CFO of the police department. And we have several other people on. All right. Do we have a quorum?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, all 7 voting members are present.
All right. I don't think we have any communications.
There is none.
Okay. This evening, we're in the wrap-up session for the FY 2021 budget. We will be accepting motions from the committee members first until the committee members are done with their motions. And then if there's any other alderman that's on that has a motion, I will recognize them. If it gets to 10 o'clock and we have not completed the meeting, I'm going to adjourn the meeting and we will pick it up again Thursday, the 4th at 7 p.m. Before we get started, we will need a motion from Alderman O'Brien to take the budget off the table. But before he does, tonight we'll be addressing possible motions to modify one way or the other the mayor's budget. I just want to caution people that we're here to agree to disagree. No, I'm sure that whatever motions there are, not everyone might agree with them. But when the motion passes, we move on and take it at that. Let's see. John Griffin's going to be keeping track of all the motions with his calculator. And so we'll know where we're at any one time. I just want to report the mayor's budget that was given to us was $284.6 million, or a 3.25% increase from last year's budget. In figuring the tax rate, though, you have to take into account the county budget that gets added to the city's budget. Anybody that, please wait till you're recognized by me before you speak. We'd prefer not to have anybody just cutting in. We have some people from the police department and fire department, which are the major departments, to answer any questions there. And I will address one motion. Well, let's go through the first. We don't have any unfinished business.
None.
New business resolutions.
There are none.
None. New business ordinances.
There are none.
We're not taking up anything that's on the table this evening. We're only going to talk about the budget. Alderman O'Brien, would you make a motion to take R 20-023 off the table?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I rise to make a motion to remove from the table Resolution R-20-023 relative to the adoption of the fiscal year 2021 proposed budget for the City of Nashua General Enterprise and Special Revenue Funds, and request by roll call.
Would you call the roll?
Alderman Clemmons,
Yes.
Alderman Schmidt,
Yes.
Alderman Jettie,
Yes.
Alderman Wilshire,
Yes.
Alderman O'Brien votes yes. Alderwoman Kelley,
Yes.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, 7 yeas, 0 nays.
Okay. So before we get started, the budget was developed pre-COVID-19. And I think that everybody feels that due to the current situation that we need to do what we can to make the tax burden less stressful on the residents and taxpayers in Nashua. So keeping that in mind, I would like to make the first motion so I can give you the type of motion that we would be expecting, since we have a lot of new people. And the motion will be, I would like to make a motion to decrease the mayor's proposed budget for FY 2021 by reducing the capital expenditures on page 255 of the budget book under FY 2021 capital improvements projects funded by one-time state revenue by reducing by $1 million by reducing the money set aside for the library plaza renovations project to $0 and applying that $1 million to reduce the impact to the FY 21 tax rate. And then I will recognize myself to speak to that motion. First of all, that's the way that the motions ought to be so that Mr. Griffin can track what we're trying to do by any of the motions. We've had discussions with the mayor and with Director Marchand and others concerning this project. It's a project that we would all like to see happen, and it would certainly help the downtown and the library area and all the area around the river that we're trying to reconstruct. But this is not the year to do it. We have $1 million. We're going to take $1 million that is one-time funds from the state. It will not impact anything else in the budget at this point on this motion. So I would like to have discussion now on that motion, if anyone would like to talk about it. Anyone?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Alderman Clemens.
Thank you. This is something that, this is a motion I will definitely support. While I agree with you that the project would be a nice thing to get done, I think there are small things that we can do, community cleanup, things like that, to just kind of spruce up the area in the meantime, and we can do these fundamental changes at a better time. $1 million is a lot to spend on what amounts to an outside landscaping project. And what I would rather see is to help people in the form of reducing the tax rate. So I will support this motion as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Alderman Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. By a motion, and I support it. I would like to see the plaza fixed. It would enhance that area that unfortunately has been long neglected or overused. And it could use some solutions, but I do support this. But it cutting out the $1 million. Are you totally earmarking the $1 million to the tax rate? There are other issues where maybe some of that money could be a little bit, go a little bit farther in helping some of our other divisions.
Well, this is just the start. There are other motions that I'm sure we'll be entertaining. And as we go along, when we get closer to the end, if modifications need to be made, we can go back. But right now, I think this is important that we apply this totally to the tax rate with everything else being considered. There are other things in the budget people may want to impact and can do so by separate motion.
Mr. Chairman?
Alderman Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with you. I'm afraid I don't want to. I think this project is really important to the people that use the library and the people that use downtown. But I think this year we have to be more prudent. And so the $1 million would be better assigned to lowering the tax rate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes. That Alderman Kelley?
it is.
Okay.
I appreciate you bringing this forward, and it makes a lot of sense. I echo some of the sentiments that I would like to see the library plaza done. I wanted to know if there is a plan in place if we do this. Would it happen next year? I just don't want to get pushed, 5-10 years out.
We will have to address the project again and see where the funding lies. Of course, that would be helped tremendously by the people that represent us in Concord. But we will have to see when the funds are available. It may not be next year because 2021 is, and possibly even 2022 are going to be tough budget years. But I think downstream, we will try to get back to that project. Anyone else? Seeing and hearing no one, Alderman O'Brien, would you call the motion?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Alderman Clemmons,
Yes.
Alderman Schmidt,
Alderman Schmidt votes yes.
Alderman Jettie,
Yes.
Alderman Wilshire,
Yes.
Alderman O'Brien votes yes. Alderwoman Kelley,
Yes.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, 7 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you very much. Now, you've seen the type of motions to be made. Alderman Wilshire has a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to make a motion to restore $207,062 from the mayor's bottom line cut to the police department budget on page 129, and reduce the department's SURF for 2021. That would involve 4 less vehicles being purchased this year in this upcoming budget. That's my motion.
Okay. All right. That the money you're talking about reducing from the SURF account, again, I believe is one-time money that came to the city. So again, it's not
Correct. Yes, that was
has
some one
little
time.
impact. And basically, it's a wash because restoring the $207,062 to the bottom line of the police department, and pushing 4 vehicles off so that we're not spending that money either. If nobody objects, I'd like to have Deputy Chief Testaverde chime in, or Karen Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. While of course we would like these vehicles in the timely fashion that they were scheduled, we totally understand the position that the city's in. Even before the pandemic, with the health insurance plight that was before us, and we want to be part of the solution. So this will not inhibit our ability to do our job on a daily basis, and we're totally fine with that. And we appreciate the efforts you've made.
And it's to allow you to hire to your budgeted full staff, right?
That's correct, sir.
Okay. Mrs. Smith, did you want to add anything, or?
I'm all set. Thank you, sir.
All right.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Griffin.
CFO John Griffin. I tried to explain this maybe the last time we met, but the elimination of the 4 vehicles is not going to have any impact on this year's budget. What basically needs to be cut is the interfund transfer in the interfund transfer area. That's the appropriation. That's the $500,000. I can further explain it if you need me to, but that's the money that would need to be cut to reduce the budget for which you're adding to.
So the 4 vehicles wouldn't be bought out of funds out of the 2021 budget? Where's the money coming from?
That money has already been appropriated, Mr. Chairman, in the SURF fund. So in order, I hope I'm making sense, in order to make it a wash, we should reduce, if that's the way, the will of the committee, we have to reduce the 207,000 from a live appropriation that's in this particular budget. That's the mechanics.
So the 500,000 that was going into SURF is coming from one-time funding, isn't it?
No, that's an annual appropriation that we've that we generally put 500,000 in the SURF account every year, knowing it's not enough. And then we
So,
backfill it with escrows, appropriations not spent.
so if we take the $207,062 less going into SURF and apply it to the police department, that's a wash on the end number of the budget, correct?
That's correct. And then what we could do, will of the committee, is when we look at the SURF, worksheet, at the end of the budget, we can eliminate the 4 or postpone the 4 vehicles that you speak of. That's where we would do it, because you're not only appropriating the budget, you're approving the SURF spend at the end of the budget. We can look at, we can get you those pages as well.
So I'll amend my motion to do what CFO Griffin just described.
Okay. All right, does any of the members of the committee have any questions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
I expected. Mr. Clemens, Alderman Clemens.
Thank you. So just so I'm on the same page. So that we're all on the same page. So the motion before us is to reduce SURF by $207,062 and add that to the police department budget. Is that correct?
It's the motion is to, the budget as it stands right now is going to have $500,000 put into SURF. Every year we put money into SURF. And I talked to the mayor today, we really need to look at how that SURF budget functions anyway. But we were going to be putting $500,000 into SURF this year. So this motion says that we'll be putting in, instead of $500,000, we'll be putting in $291,224 into SURF and moving the $207,062 to the police bottom line.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions on the budget? I mean, on this motion? Alderman Lou?
Thank you. Is the SURF in the budget book? Is there
Yes.
a page number?
So.
I can tell you in 1 second.
Well, you know what?
Mr. Chairman, you do want to look at page 252. That's where the reduction in the appropriation come from.
Right. Yeah, the transfers, oh. I think she was looking for the list of SURF vehicles, which I thought I had earmarked here, but anyway.
In the blue pages, on page 340.
340?
Yeah, so you could identify the.
Oh, yeah, I get it, yeah.
Cut.
Thank you, Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
I just wondered, I don't need to see the vehicles, but so the figure is in that interfund transfer. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep. It's every year we put money into SURF, usually not enough. And that's why at some point we need to have a discussion on how SURF works. I don't want to get into it tonight. It's too long a question. But instead of putting $500,000 into SURF, we would reduce that by $207,062, put them in the bottom line of the police department. And at this point, we would still be putting $291,224 into SURF. All right. Any other questions on the motion? Seeing none, Alderman O'Brien, please call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Alderman Clemens,
Yes.
Alderman Schmidt,
Yes.
Alderman Jettie,
Yes.
Alderman Wiltshire,
Yes.
Alderman O'Brien votes yes. Alderwoman Kelley,
Yes.
Alderman Dowd,
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, 7 yeas, 0 nays.
Very good. All right. Are there any other motions? Mr. Griffin, you want to make a motion? Go ahead. Did you have something you wanted to?
Oh, no, I'm all set. I just,
All
at
right.
some point, you may want to identify those 4 vehicles.
Yeah, I think we were going to let the department
Oh,
pick
okay,
up the
that's
4
fine.
vehicles.
That's fine.
And they may have already looking at the,
Mr. Chairman, Jim Testaverde, yes, we've already done that. We can send those over.
okay. All right, yeah, send them to Mr. Griffin. All right, any other motions? All right, I have another motion. I'd like to make a motion to reduce the FY 2021 one-time state revenue funds found on page 251 being placed in general funds contingency account number 70112, contingency for educational priorities, by $1 million, leaving a balance of the funds going into the account for education to $1,900,000. I further move to apply this $1 million to reducing the general budget by $1 million and applying these $1 million to reduce the tax rate. Any questions? No questions?
I have a-
Schmidt.
Thank you. Could you explain a little bit about where the 2.9 million is in?
Absolutely. If you look on page 251, we have one-time funds from the state, from the educational monies. It was $2.9 million. We are putting all of that money before the motion into contingency. For instance, there's $450,000 in there on contingency for deferred maintenance for the school department. I wouldn't touch that. If I did anything, I'd add to it. But so these things are all in contingency and will have to be authorized by the Board of Alderman for the Board of Education to spend. The list came from them, and I'm not picking on any one item, but I think it's the time that we need to take that $1 million and do what we can to reduce the overall tax rate at the end of the year. Any other
Follow-up?
Follow-up?
Do I remember that some of this money was going to be used for a bridge? Is this
A bridge?
Is this what? Yes. Wasn't the school worried about replacing something that was in really bad condition? Perhaps I'm in the wrong category.
I don't think we're building any bridges on.
No. No computer bridge.
Oh, some of that money would still be used to buy the computer equipment.
Okay. So we're only taking a third of it, sort of. Okay, thank you.
All right. Did I hear Alderman Kelley?
You did.
Okay.
So my question is, I was under the understanding that some of this IT money for the Chromebooks, et cetera, was earmarked specifically for that. So I'm wondering if us just cutting that makes a difference, knowing that they have to use the money for Chromebooks, or which is like one of the top line items on this.
No. Are you thinking of the money that's coming down because of COVID-19? That's a different bucket of money, and it has to be spent on COVID-19 expenditures. They're getting, John, maybe you can help me, $3.4 million from the state.
Something close to that, yes.
Yeah, and they haven't determined exactly how they're going to spend that yet, but it could be for a number of things, including computer equipment to help on distant learning. You all set, Alderman Kelley?
I mean, I just wanted to follow up if I may.
Yeah, the money is listed on
I'm
page.
looking at the page.
Okay.
I'm looking right at it.
Now,
I'm looking right at it. I mean, I think I'm concerned. I currently don't feel I can support this. I need a little bit more information if there's others who can speak to this, but I'm uncomfortable with changing the school budget knowing how many years they've been consistently given less, and I know that they've been asked to increase their ELL teachers, etc. So, I mean, $1 million is nothing to shake a stick at. So,
yeah, Alderman Kelley, this is not part of the school department's budget. It's not part of their 2% increase. It's not part of the regular school budget. It's extra funds that were coming down from the state to be earmarked to be spent by the school department. And they came up with a proposed list that they wanted to allocate it to, working with the mayor. And that's all of that money is going to be in contingency until they come and say, we want to spend the money for X. And then we authorize it to be spent, much like we did with the ELL positions last year.
yep, I remember that.
This is not part of the school board budget.
I understand. I get what you're saying, but I am looking at the item list and I'm wondering if we reduce it by $1 million, where they can get the money for the things that are here, and that there's nothing on this list that I look at and say, oh, that can wait. I mean, Chromebooks in a time when all of our students are remotely learning, ELL teachers. I mean, there's very little fat there, and that's my concern.
I think that I certainly would agree with not wanting to severely impact the school department, but they are going to get $3.4 million, and they can buy computer equipment with that based on the COVID-19. And the last time I had talked to them, they had not specified where they were going to spend that $3.4 million. So I think that if somebody wanted to modify that amount to bring it down a bit, that's fine. But I think we need to find money that doesn't impact our major departments, that can reduce the overall tax burden on the citizens in Asheville. You all said, Alderman Kelley?
I wish I had some more information from specifically the school department about how those things you're talking about, the CARES Act, etc. I just want to make sure we're not balancing the budget on the backs of our children. I understand that it's a tough year, but I mean,
Well, if this motion does pass, this will go to the full board at some point, probably not till the 23rd, when we pass the final budget. And if there were overly concerns, you could raise them at that time, and
okay.
it could be modified at that time. So now I have Elizabeth Liu and then Alderman Jettie.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. The CARES Act, the 3.4 million is required to be spent on expenses that have already been incurred. Is that correct?
I don't believe so. No, it just has to be anything that is been impacted by COVID-19. One of the things that's impacted is the extra use they're getting out of their Chromebooks, and that money can be used to replace the ones they need to replace, and possibly even buy others if they go to continue distant learning. And then I don't know how they want to spend the rest of the money. I've sort of asked the question a couple times and don't have an answer yet. So I feel fairly comfortable with what we're doing. And if we find something different between now and wrap up, we can make changes.
Thank you. And the Chromebooks that they had intended to spend $700,000 on, have they already bought them to send home with the program a month?
I'm having a hard time understanding.
I wondered if they've already bought the Chromebooks, whether they ended up buying them already in March.
I think the Chromebooks they were looking at, because this budget and all this stuff was made before COVID-19. What they were looking at is the Chromebooks only have a certain lifespan, uh, if for no other reason, technology. And they need to replace a number of them. And I think they came up with that number to do the replacement. But now with the added use that the Chromebooks are getting because of COVID-19, I think they're eligible for out of that $3.4 million.
Thank you.
All set? Alderman Jettie?
Yes. So for years, we've been complaining the state is not providing us with enough money to support education. Certainly a lot less money than they're supposed to be giving us. So this year, they finally give us this extra money for education. And what are we doing? We're if this passes, we're not using it for education. We're using it to reduce the tax rate. It's like the state of New Hampshire taking the tobacco settlement money and not using it to reduce tobacco use, but using it to balance the budget. I just think it's, I think it's a wrong way of approaching this. So I'm against this. And I don't think we ought to vote for this tonight and expect to be convinced otherwise. At a subsequent full board meeting, I think we ought. Personally, I'm going to vote against this tonight. If you can convince me otherwise at the full board meeting, I may change my mind. But right now, based upon the information I'm being provided, this seems like a misuse of the education money that the state is providing us.
Mr. Griffin, do you want to address that at all as to the application of the money?
Certainly, I think the mayor might want to speak as well, but the money comes in through the school department state adequacy aid. It was commingled or combined with the former kindergarten funding. It's 2.9 this year. It was close to 2.9 last year. And it was to provide relief for the school department. But it's not compelling, because we know that the school department's budget, as Mr. Donovan indicates, is about 150 million, and we get 38 million of aid. So the taxpayer, as a consequence, pays most of the funding for the school department. So hopefully that helps. Just keeping my tote board here, we started with a 4.5% tax increase. The first million brought it down to 4.2, and this million brings it down to 3.8, 3.76 to be more exact. So you're trying to combine a lot of competing efforts. And again, as you said, Mr. Chairman, pre-COVID, now we're post-COVID, and we're trying to, as the mayor indicated in his remarks, trying to make sure we balance the needs of the city, school, and other departments.
Also, I'm pretty familiar with this budget book now, probably too familiar. And I'll tell you right now, I cannot find another place in the budget anywhere where we can reduce $1 million and not decimate our departments, and that's not something I'm in favor of. And trust me, I've been involved with the education and the school department for 16 years. If I didn't think that they could survive with this cut, especially with the monies they're getting through the COVID-19 relief state money, I wouldn't have brought it up. But I think it's the only place that we can get the amount of money to bring the tax rate down to something that's more reasonable. We've been averaging about 2.6%. And even with this, we're down just under 3.8%. So taxes are going to go up. And this is not a good time for the people of Nashua to be having to shell out more money than they have to for taxes. So is there anyone else that would like to speak to this motion?
I would, please.
Alderman Kelley?
Yes, I have a question. I think it would be for you. Are we entirely sure that this won't decimate the budget of the school and have the, affect them in a way where they're going to have to make layoffs?
No, again, this is not part of their school budget. These are things that they would be spending over and above their school budget. For instance, deferred maintenance is an example of one of the spending items on the contingency list, is normally out of capital improvements, and it's not part of the school budget. So some of these things on there are not part of the school budget anyway. They work to the benefit of the schools, but they're not part of the school budget.
Mr. Chairman?
Alderman Clemens.
Thank you. Yeah, so just to kind of emphasize your point, it's not money that, it's one-time money coming from the state of New Hampshire. It's not anything in the presentation or that we got from the superintendent. And it's not money that is, coming from the tax base. So it's coming from the state of New Hampshire as a separate appropriation almost. So instead of directing it towards the school, we're directing it towards to reduce the property tax burden. And so while I appreciate the fact that I would like to have them have in better times, I would like to have them have this money. But I think where you said they could potentially make up the money with the COVID funding, I think that would make them whole on a lot of these things, and I'm going to support your motion. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Seeing no one, Alderman O'Brien, would you please call the roll?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Alderman Clemens,
Yes.
Alderman Schmidt,
Yes.
Alderman Jettie,
No.
Alderman Wiltshire,
Yes.
Alderman O'Brien votes yes. Alderwoman Kelley,
No.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, you have 5 yeas, 2 nays.
Thank you. I'm now ready to accept any other motions that someone might have relative to the budget. And by the way, when we run out of motions, that's when I'm going to ask for a final vote on the budget to go to back to the full Board of Aldermen. So does
Mr.
anyone
Chairman?
have any other motions they'd like to address?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Alderman Clemens.
Thank you. I would like to make a motion to restore $391,224 of the mayor's bottom line cut to the fire department for fiscal year 21 budget by making the following changes. I would propose that we take the remaining $291,224 of one-time money currently allocated from the one-time state revenue to the SURF account and put that to zero and put that back into the fire department budget. And in addition, I would propose that we take $100,000 of the million we just reduced from the one-time state money going to the school and allocate to that to the fire department. And I would like to speak to that.
Okay, you heard the motion. Alderman Clemmons, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes. So basically, what effectively this would do is restore 391, almost $400,000 of the mayor's 500,000 cut to the fire department. It would effectively put SURF at zero in 2021, or any money into SURF. It would also leave $900,000 remaining to reduce the fiscal year 21 tax rate from the previous motion that you made. The issue here is that we have the firefighters contract, which is going to come before us in the next coming week or so. And right now, there's currently no money in there for that raise. And what this motion is going to do is allow some room for that increase to the Nashua Fire Department so that we can have them have some money for their contract. And so there may need to be additional adjustments after this, but I think it's important that we recognize the fact that the chief came before us and basically said that the cut that the mayor made to the budget is not going to be sustainable for any contract that comes forward to us. So these folks have been working almost a year without a contract, and even if we don't pass this one that's before us, we should recognize the fact that they have been dealing day in and day out with the COVID-19 problem. And on top of that, for the last 4 or 5 years have been doing the Safe Stations program without any extra compensation. So I think it's in our best interest to do this. And that's the purpose for me making this motion. And I hope people could support it. Thank you.
Mayor, good.
Can I address this for a moment?
Yes, go ahead, Mayor.
All right, I think there's a misunderstanding regarding how much money there is available to the firefighters. Now, it is not. I can go through the figures, and you will hear from CFO Griffin as well. It is not. There is not sufficient funds, yes, to fund the 17% raise that is proposed in the contract, but in fiscal 20, our current budget year, we included $438,000, and that's still there to cover an increase for firefighters. And in the current budget, there's also money to cover a raise, not as much as is called for in the contract, but as John Griffin and I went through this with our budget team today, if you were going to fund, and I'm going to give you 2 scenarios, which I discussed with you, Mr. Chair, today, but the way the school department reports and calculates the amount of a contract for a single year, the wage increase includes the wage increase, say it's 2.5 or 2 or 1.5 or whatever it is, includes the step increases that will be incurred in that year. If you use that, and I'm going to call this scenario 1, if you use that method of calculating, of determining what the wage increase is going to be, including the cost of living increase and steps, to do a 2.5% raise in fiscal 20 and another 2.5% raise in fiscal 21, 2.5% each year, you would only need to add $51,000 to this year's budget. Now, scenario 2. If you are not including the step increases as part of the wage increase that you are trying to fund, then of course you are increasing total compensation by more than 2.5%, because you're doing 2.5. If you were seeking 2.5 plus the steps, that's scenario 2. There is still $438,000 in last year's budget, which would cover that. And you would need to add, and CFO Griffin and I went through this in detail today, along with the other budget team members. You would need to add $245,000 in this year's budget to fund step increases plus 2.5%. So I don't know, where this, maybe someone doesn't understand. I'm not saying, I'm not disagreeing that Alderman Clemmons was presented that information, but the information was not really, you go through the numbers in detail, not accurate, because there is $1,144,000 in the fire department's proposed budget for wage increases. I did reduce that by $500,000, but that still leaves $644,000 in the fire department budget for wage increase. So I believe the figures that I'm giving you are accurate. If you want to fund 2.5% plus the steps, there is not enough, that's correct, but the addition there would need to be $245,000. And if we were just doing 2.5%, including the steps, you would only need to add $51,000.
All set, Mayor?
But could John?
Yep, John.
Could you make sure that I have accurately reported what we came up with?
Yes, Mayor, and Chairman Dow, that calculation that the mayor just described is accurate.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
through
Alderman
you,
Clemmons.
through you to CFO Griffin, what would be the amount that we would need to add to the budget this year to cover the contract that's before the Board of Aldermen?
In consultation with the fire department, their recommendation is 150,000, which I agree with.
So in order to, if I understand you correctly, in order to, with the contract that's before the board, if we added $150,000, that would be enough money for next year to fund that entire contract without any layoffs or anything like that.
Well, wait, there's another misunderstanding here. That is not what he's answering.
Okay, well, that's what I'm asking. I'm asking how much money
Right.
would need to be added to the budget.
Yes, he's answering the question. How much would we need in this year's budget, the current budget, to fund the contract, given what's been proposed? In other words, add to the budget that we're operating in right now.
No, that's not my question.
I know that, but that's what he answered. That's what he.
Oh, okay.
Okay, sorry.
So the question is, how much would you need to add to the budget to fully fund the contract that's proposed? And that number is I think, well, correct me if I'm wrong, but the $500,000 that I cut, right?
That, yes, the number that we discussed during the fire session is the 1.144 million. That's the calculation necessary in fiscal 21. That's absolutely correct.
Mr. Chairman, if I could continue.
Alderman Clemmons?
Thank you. So what my motion does is get us closer to that $500,000 so that we can take up the contract that is before us and be able to give it a favorable recommendation. So with that in mind, and again, and that's still, 100,000 or so, 109,000 or so short of where ideally we would need to be, but it's a heck of a lot closer to the number that we need to get to, and I'm confident that that we could find, if we work together, we can find that further together. So with that said, I'm going to keep my motion as is.
Comments on the motion? No one? So everyone understands the motion as Alderman Clemmons has put it forth to take the balance of the money that was, Alderman Schmidt?
Thank you. No, I don't really understand. I don't really know where that the money is coming from or where it's going to. Would you just a clear sentence on the process of the movement of the money?
Okay, what he's suggesting is taking the balance of the money that was going to be put into SURF. Remember, we just reduced it with the police department. And the balance there was 291, 224. So that money would be, instead of going to SURF from one, would go into the fire department budget, plus the $1 million that we just passed to from the one-time money to the school department. He reduced that by $100,000, giving $900,000 towards the tax rate, and taking that $100,000, adding it to the 291, 224 from the SURF, for amount of $391,224 to be applied to the bottom line of the fire department. I hope that was.
That was
That's
concise. Yeah, that was clear. Does that mean that the fireman's budget as it comes to us, or the fireman's contract comes to us, that we can pass that? Will this
It's-
cover it?
And John, you can jump in, but it would not be enough money to pass the existing contract. They would still be short some amount of money. I think 150,000 or something like that. That if we passed the contract as it came to us, we would, whenever we would have to find it somewhere in the remaining budget in 2021.
Mr. Chairman, I think the answer is that you'd still be $150,000 short this year, the current year that we're in. And John can, CFO Griffin can correct me if I'm wrong, and I believe, given Alderman Clemmons' motion of 391, you would still be short 109,000 in fiscal 21. Do you think that's correct, Mr. Griffin?
Yes, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Mayor, that's correct. Just one subtle point. If we take the 500,000 that was going to go into SURF and subtract the 207,062, I don't get the number that, I get a different number.
I think what it is, it should be after the 207,000 is taken out and $64. It's the balance from the 500.
Right, I get
Yes.
292,900, I get 292,938, just for the math works.
292,938.
Right, so 292,938 plus 207,062 is 500,000.
Okay, I did my math wrong.
That's okay.
All right.
So Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Alderman Clemmons.
I'm going to amend that to what CFO Griffin just said was the actual number. So it's 392,938.
Okay. Any other discussion on the motion before us? Alderman Lou?
Chairman, is there any, so that would be the contingency for the education.
You're being hard to hear you. Can you move closer?
That would leave the contingency for the education zeroed out, correct?
No. We're not taking, what he was proposing was we just took 900,000 out of that contingency. I mean, $100 million out of that contingency. And he wants to take, of that million we just reduced from that contingency account, he wants to take 100,000 of it, apply it to the fire budget, and leave 900,000 to address the original motion.
Thank you, I see.
Okay.
I just wanted to suggest, is there a reason why it would be a good idea to leave state assistance in the education for education priorities and just reduce the education budget, the allocation, so that we haven't received funding from the state and then, diverted it, but we let it go to education priorities as a contingency, but we reduced their budget in another way.
Yeah, I wouldn't suggest taking the school department's budget with what they came in at and reducing it at all. Personally, I would leave the school budget intact. They did a great job of getting down to what the mayor asked them to get down to. And I don't think, in my personal opinion, we ought to be touching any more of that. What we're talking about is state money that came down that even as we speak with this part of the budget, we're not giving to the school department initially. What we're doing is putting it in contingency. And as they come to us with things to spend, we will have 1.9 million to give to them instead of 2.9 million. And I know that 450,000 of that is for, at least that's what they have earmarked so far, for deferred maintenance. That deferred maintenance should be a lot higher. When you have $1.8 billion in school buildings, that amount of money to maintain them is kind of really low. Okay.
Thank you. I just wanted to throw that out there. I wondered if it would disincentivize the state from ever sending aid down again if we divert it away from its.
No, I think there's a lot of activity in the state to even add more money to education. So I don't think it would defer them at all. They're trying to give us more money than they're giving us already. And right now it's tough to get it through part of the cycle, but we'll see. All right, Alderman Clee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a comment and a question, but first my question would be through you to CFO Griffith, and that is, with this, if this were to pass, what would be the effective tax rate at this point?
So as I mentioned, we were at 3.76. With the 100,000 reduction from the million of the school, it would rise to 3.87.
Okay.
Estimate.
Thank you very much. And may I continue,
Yes.
Mr. Chairman? Thank you. I guess my next comment would be, in truth, we've been talking about the firefighters contract, and so on. And it's something that we need to look at seriously. And whether we pass this one, send it back, ask for another one, is yet to be determined. But I think we need to put something aside and budget as if we're going to pass something. And I appreciate exactly what the mayor had to say about, if we maintained it at a 2 point whatever the rate was that he gave, which, may seem reasonable and so on, but they have gone a year without a contract. And all the things that Alderman Clemens has said about the safe stations and so on. I've been trying to do a lot of homework to find out were they given any extra funds and so on for it. And from what I've been able to gather, they haven't, and they've stepped up and done a yeoman's job. I really would like to be able to do something for them. We don't know what's going to happen when the contract comes before us and we all sit down and talk, but I think I'd like to at least budget something, at least part of that, if not all of that 500,000 back to them. So that is my comment. Thank you.
All right, anyone else? I've been trying to, I think we recognized at one point that it wasn't quite enough money in the FY 2021 budget to give any kind of a raise, appropriate raise to the fire department. And I think we should add some money back. But I don't think we ought to go as high as 392, 938. If the fireman's contract passes, we'll have to come up with a balance of money at that time. But at least if we put some money back in there, if things change, we could still give them a decent raise, and it might not be what's in the current contract, but it might be something less, at least in 20 and 21. And maybe they move things to the out year, but I'm conflicted because, I've always supported the fire department and they do a hell of a job for us. And there's no better fire department in the state of New Hampshire or New England than we have. And we do have to support them. It's a question of balancing the support we can give to the fire department with what the taxpayers can afford. And that's what's been weighing on my mind. Any other comments on the motion? Seeing none. Alderman O'Brien, would you call the roll?
Alderman Clemens,
Yes.
Alderman Schmidt,
No.
Alderman Jettie,
No.
Alderman Wilshire,
Yes.
Alderman O'Brien votes yes. Alderman Kelley,
No.
Alderman Dowd,
No.
Mr. Chairman, you have 3 yeas, 4 nays.
So motion fails. I would be willing to address a similar motion with the numbers that we have heard, if somebody wants to make that motion. No? Alderman Wilshire.
Can you remind us what the numbers were that we heard?
I think I'm going to throw that potato to Mr. Griffin.
Hold on here.
So I think the number is the 245, which would allow 2.5% raise plus steps.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
I'll make that motion.
All right, Alderman Wilshire makes the motion to take 245,000 from the remaining money that was going into SURF and apply it to the bottom line of the fire department budget to allow for wage contingency. I
I
think
have a
that's
question,
Alderman Kelley.
just a clarification, that if it's coming from SURF to the bottom line, it's not, the effect is null, essentially.
Effective what?
It's coming from SURF. It's similar.
It's actually not coming from SURF. It's coming from the funds that we were going to be putting in SURF and reducing that number, and Alderman, Mr. Griffin's gonna have to do the math on what's left in.
Yeah.
But I'm not even sure. We may need that money anyway, but it's just, so I think I heard, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Griffin, that if we put 245,000 back in the bottom line cut for the fire department, you'd have enough for a 2.5% raise plus steps.
That's correct.
All right.
And
And that would be,
Yep, that would leave 47,938 to be transferred as part of this budget into SURF.
okay. Understand your motion, Alderman Wiltshire?
I do. Thank you very much.
That's good, because, so my feeling on this is it gives us a base to work with money in the FY21 budget. If the full contract passes, we will have to adjust on the fly to cover the difference in costs. And we can address that when we talk about the budget. There's a public hearing on the 10th, followed by a budget meeting to discuss the fireman's contract. Are there any questions on the motion on the floor before us?
Mr. Chairman?
Oh, I get Alderman O'Brien first. He put his hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. I am very disappointed that Alderman Clemens' motion did not pass, because it would seem to have been a prudent motion that would have done exactly what we wanted and taken care of the firefighters and practically fund them to a pretty level to what the city, and may I say, the city negotiates the contract. That is, the mayor appoints, legal. We have a duly elected the Board of Fire Commissioners, the fire chiefs, and they came back and brought to us that deal that is on the table. And I wish there wasn't a long term in the negotiations. What would have happened if this came back pre-COVID-19? Probably this deal would have been passed. And this is the misunderstanding that I think a lot of the rank and file firemen may not actually gather. Here they were asked to do things with COVID-19. They were, as much as the general population in America, not prepared for it. And I guess some of the firefighters, from what I understand, had to wear bandanas, not the mask. When they went to approach the hospitals, they were told we need them for our own. And so the original motion, although this pending motion probably will do a little bit of something, it will help. But much of the step increases that we're basically talking about, they're embedded into the contract. Anyways, and I think Mr. Griffin can explain that they're naturally going to happen. It occurs when people do get their education or promotion or other different things. If you want examples, if you want somebody to dive into the water to rescue somebody that is drowning, you have to meet their certain certifications to become a certified diver. And when you become a certified diver, then you're up into that type of matrix on that. So although this will take care of part of it, but I don't know, I can support this, but it's a far cry from what we originally intended to do with the Clemens motion. Thank you.
My concern is it gives us a base of money in the 2021 budget. We don't know what's going to happen with the contract. And by the way, we will know what's going to happen with the contract before the final vote on the budget. But it will now establish, as coming out of budget committee, that we have some amount of money in there for an increase. if we put too much money in it and the contract fails and comes back sometime with less, then we've got all this money in contingency that we might not have needed. Although I think we probably use all of it that's there. And if the contract passes as it's currently written without being modified, then we're going to have to do something either at the budget wrap up on the 23rd or whenever the contract comes back to us for final passage. I don't think that this negates anything to do with the contract. I think it just puts an amount of money in the FY21 budget that will give us a good balancing point. I think I had someone else that wanted to speak.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Alderman Clemens.
Thank you. Yeah, like Alderman O'Brien, I was disappointed in the vote previously, but I will, I'll support this because it gets us basically halfway to where we need to be, or almost halfway to where we need to be. But this is the issue that I have, and I hate bringing up one department over another and things like that. But I asked every single department what they, how many new employees they were going to have and such, and the police department had a lot of vacancies, so they're filling vacancies. But the school department, is hiring 17 new people, new employees. So that, to me, it just sends. I understand some of them are very important. Some of them have to do with federal mandates and things like that. So I get that. We probably had to have some of them.
Alderman Clemens, a little off topic there, but.
Well, I'm speaking about the budget.
Yeah, but we're talking about
how it relates to this motion, because how it relates to this motion is that we're trying to add money to the firefighters or to the fire budget so that they can give their existing employees a raise, so that they can give the employees that have been working on the job without a contract for a year a raise. And yet in the other part of the budget, we're telling another department, yeah, go out and hire 17 new more people. Just to me, I don't know, it doesn't send the right message. And I'm not saying that the 17 people that the school department is hiring is wrong, which is why I was trying to get us closer to the 500,000 for the fire department, so that they too could take care of their personnel needs. So, I'm going to support this, but we're only about halfway there.
Anyone else? So I think this motion is trying to get some balance. I certainly believe the firemen deserve to be compensated for what they do, because, as I said, I've always respected and appreciated everything they do. But we have to take a view for the entire city of Nashville and the taxpayers, and if we can help them a little later than during this pandemic, when people are suffering in a number of different instances, we've got to strike a balance, and that's what I think this motion does. So I'm supporting Alderman Wiltshire's motion.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Alderman O'Brien?
Could this legally, and I'm concerned here, coming in at the lower type of number, could that be legally construed as part of us getting involved with the negotiations because we have set in the price and underfunding it. And so therefore, when the parties, it seems like if there's no money, the party's gonna have to go back to the table. And so therefore, are we dangerously close in negotiations?
Again, we're going to address the fireman's budget before we pass the final 2021 budget. So at this point, I would say no. If the current contract gets passed on the 10th, we'll have to adjust the numbers on the 23rd. But this gives us a little bit of a base to work with. Any other comments? Alderman Lopez.
Yeah, just to Alderman O'Brien's point, most of the conversation has been about Alderman essentially expressing their intention to support or not support a bill that we still have to hear. So either funding part of it is a negotiation or funding it before we've even voted on it. Seems like it would be a negotiation. I think it would be a good idea to focus on the budget rather than messages we're sending and that kind of stuff.
Anyone else? Seeing no one, would the clerk please call the roll?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Alderman Clemmons,
Yes.
Alderman Schmidt,
Yes.
Alderman Jettie,
Yes.
Alderman Wiltshire,
Yes.
Alderman O'Brien votes yes. Alderwoman Kelley,
Yes.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, 7 yeas, 0 nays.
All right. Are anyone other motions that anyone would like to make at this time?
I'd like to make a motion.
Alderman Kelley.
And forgive me if I don't put this exactly perfectly, and maybe I can get some help here. But I would like to restore 300,000 to the contingency for the school to bring us in line with what we've given back to other departments. So you reduced it by a million. I'd like to give back 300,000.
From where?
The contingency for educational
No.
priorities.
I understand that, but where are you getting the 300,000 from? You have to take it from somewhere to put it somewhere.
Alderman Dowd,
Yes, Alderman Wiltshire.
the one-time money, the one-time million that we,
Yes.
yeah,
Okay, so you want to reduce the $1 million that we were going to put towards the tax rate to $700,000 and put 300,000 back.
Correct.
Okay. Mr. Griffin, did you follow that enough to be able to?
Yes, very clear.
That's
If I
good.
could,
Very clear. It adds 300,000 to the appropriations.
Yeah.
I understand that.
Did you want to speak to it, Alderman Kelley?
I do. So I know you had mentioned that you would potentially consider a different number, and I've been listening to the motions on the floor. I appreciate we're all in a tough budget season. We're all trying to, help the various departments and give them, whatever they need, whether it's coming up to full complement or, allowing the police to be in a place that they can support the things that are going on in the city right now. I think that this is in line with what we've done for the other departments. And I urge us to look at the things that are on that page and consider it in terms of what's going on right now. And I know we say COVID's coming, that's got a lot of strings. But I think that we should be as fair as we can here and not continually nick away at the school. I feel very strongly that the adequacy aid that we hold the schools to wait for and push for should go to the schools. And I understand that there are a lot of intricacies to a city budget, but the money was supposed to be for inadequate access to education. And I think trying to move it to a fire department or to the bottom line just puts us at a disadvantage.
Okay, anyone else want to comment on the motion before us? Alderman O'Brien?
Thank you. I am going to vote against this because for a couple of different reasons. The money, the $1 million was taken out of the $2,900,000 general fund contingency. So in other words, the money is there, but it wasn't really particularly earmarked, although it was designated to Chromebooks, and as Chairman Dowd said, deferred maintenance, to which I agree totally with Chairman Dowd. The deferred maintenance has a cost factor of $460,000, and I would like that to remain the same. But basically, there's several other choices where the money could, where the school department could pick and choose on where to best spend the $1,900,000 remaining. Almost $2,000 is remaining, and so therefore that's a lot of money. Again, that's not a drop in the bucket for them to decide, and they could put down to their programs that seem appropriate. And I have no doubt that the school department can do that. I seem to remember last budget year, there was a motion brought up by one of the aldermen to increase the school department budget to include some teachers and everything. Well, that money sat in the school department account until almost the very last, and then it was applied to something. And you got to keep in mind with the school department, we do not have control over the bottom line. I mean, we have control over the bottom line, but we give them X amount of money on their particular budget, and they determine where to spend those particular funds. It's not like where we can designate where they can be earmarked. So I'm confident the school department can handle almost the almost $2 million remaining in the general fund contingency prioritized program. So I'm against this motion.
Okay, Alderman Clee, then Alderman Lopez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, I'm going to ask a question of Mr. Griffith through you. How does this taking this 300,000 back out affect the tax rate? It's at 3.76 right now, correct? How does it affect that tax rate?
3.79.
Brings it to 3.79. Thank you so much.
Correct.
So that's what it is after the 300?
Correct.
Okay. Alderman Lopez?
Yeah, just for context to what Alderman O'Brien was talking about, during the last budget season, I think Alderman Kelley was one of the co-sponsors on it. We did increase the number of paraprofessionals that were available to the teacher because their ratios were dangerously high. And then later on in the year, ultimately, the school district had some state investigation to that effect as to whether they were delivering effective service. So we increased it slightly more as well in strategic reserve or contingency, so that if they were, as they were able to fill positions, they would be able to recruit more paras. One of the reasons that we weren't able to get the paraprofessionals fully hired to fill those roles was actually because we were trying to split hairs and have one person work at like 3 different schools. So they're having trouble finding somebody, and as soon as we added a person, it was more easy for them to hire somebody who would be able to work a reasonable job instead of like 3 part-time ones. Before we ended up having to spend that money, however, the state recognized that we had additional funding needs, and so we didn't end up using that money ourselves, but we did end up increasing some of the deficit. If memory serves, we added like three or four positions, and I think the number that was the school board originally estimated was much higher. It was like 9 to 12. The school district has always been underfunded. It is always the one that gets the largest cuts. I believe we do not cut the fire department's budget at all. I think we've been fully funding them and meeting their needs as best we're able to at every opportunity. But that also means that because we do cut the school district's funding, there's a lot more unmet need, and I don't think their need's going to be reduced at all, given the COVID-19 crisis. The staff and the teachers have to really pivot and come up with new protocols and new teaching strategies. And I don't know what the fall is going to look like either, because if you have to reduce classroom size, you're going to need to have enough teachers to teach those classes. So I kind of see what Alderman Kelley is trying to do here. And I would just caution members of the committee against saying, well, there's less money available, or the school district is getting more money, so if we cut it in half, then there's still more money left over. That was all already kind of an apology funding source. We are already making major cuts in our education and underfunding it in a lot of areas. Our schools are not stellar performers. They need more resources, and we're cutting in half out of necessity resources that were given to them specifically. So I would just caution against continually subdividing how much resources the schools get, because that's what we've been complaining the state's been doing for years.
Hey, anyone else like to comment?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Alderman Clemmons?
Yes. So I unfortunately I won't be able to support this amendment either. And the reason is because like you had said at the beginning, Mr. Chairman, the amount of money that the school is going to get in COVID money could be used to supplement some or almost all of the $1 million that we took from the bottom line here. And in addition to that, the only department that is hiring new people is the school department. And so while I understand that there may be a need, there's a lot of needs all around the city right now. But I think the school department is going to be very well off. I originally at the education meeting portion of the budget hearing was going to vote to amend the school department by cutting the 500,000 or so for the 17 new positions. And having spoken to several of the some teachers and some other folks in the community, and some people on the school board, they have told me that those are positions that are to them well needed. And so I've changed my point of view on that, but I really can't in good conscience add anything more to their budget, or anything more to their side, because we really are in a tough spot, and I think that they can make up that money with some of the COVID funding. So I'm going to vote no.
Anyone else who would like to? Alderman Jettie?
Yes, thank you. So I think that, when you look at the general overview of our situation, I think one of the things that is well recognized, that what makes cities or towns outstanding, what makes Nashua such a great place to live, has always been that we have such a great school system. But we have short funded our school system for years now, and I think it's starting to catch up with us. The needs of the schools, have increased dramatically, especially with, it has been pointed out to us, so many different languages that are spoken by students entering our schools, and the difficulty that our schools have with, dealing with that and teaching those kids appropriately. It takes a lot more resources to deal with that. when you look at how much Nashua spends on schools, you know, and we think it's a lot of money, but I think when you compare what we spend, when you compare it to what other cities and towns in New Hampshire spend, we are not spending. We're spending less than the average. Let me just say that. So it's not like our school department is getting most of our money in comparison to how other cities and towns meet those demands. The other thing is that, you know, this money that was provided by the state, when we first found out how much it was going to be, you know, I don't remember exactly that there was a deal made or an agreement made or any kind of a binding thing, but I remember the mayor announcing that that the you know, a certain amount of that, you know, that money that was allocated for education was going to be used for education. There was another amount allocated to the city that was going to be used by the city, and you know, and here we are taking that money away from the school and using it for other purposes. You know, I think if the school department had known that we weren't going to give them this money, they probably, you know, their budget probably would have looked differently. They probably would have held on to, you know, the original budget that they were requesting, but they made it, you know, an agreement with the mayor to reduce it to the amount that he was requesting, but with the understanding that they were going to get this additional money as well. So, you know, I voted against taking this money away from the school a few motions ago, and I will support Alderman Kelley's you know, attempt to restore at least part of it, because I think that's the right thing for us to do.
Thank you, Alderman Jenny. Alderman Schmidt?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Maybe people have forgotten, but the Department of Justice is currently investigating Nashua for inadequate services. And part of this money was to go to the ELL, behavior, paras, psychologists. The money is essential for the schools. And if we could restore a little bit more of it so that we don't take a full third, but less than that, it would certainly make a huge difference. And we could still use the 700 for reducing taxes. I will vote for this and thank Alderwoman Kelley.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Alderman Clemens?
perhaps this was asked and answered, and I apologize if it has been. I just wanted, I guess, reiterated for my own purposes. But what does this bring the tax? If we pass this motion, what does it bring the tax rate to?
I
next
think
year?
Mr. Griffin said 3.79%.
From the 3.71 that we were at, correct?
3.76, Mr. Chairman.
That's
So we-
where we'll be if this passes,
It was 3.76.
and it will go to 3.79 if this passes.
That's correct.
All right.
Thank you for the
Okay.
clarification.
Okay, thank you.
Alderwoman Kelley, did you have something?
No, I was just saying thank you for the clarification. I had the wrong.
Okay. All right. Any other comments on this motion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Alderman Clemens?
Thank you. You know, I'm struggling with this budget as it is. You know, it's funny. Last year, I made the comment that if $10 was the difference between you making your taxes and losing your house, that you were in serious trouble. But that was in an economy when we were, you know, we had a very low unemployment rate here in Nashua. As the mayor said the other night, we have over 10,000 people in Nashua who are unemployed. That is a humongous number. It's a number I don't think this city has really ever seen in modern history. And it's we have a budget that's going up by almost 4%. In a year when over 10,000 people in the city don't have jobs. I just feel like we're trying very hard to balance service and give people the most for their money that they do have to spend. And, you know, the school department this year, because of the state aid, is doing very well. And I, for one, can't understand why, when they could get the money from emergency funds to supplement some of the things that they would have spent with this $1 million, why we would, you know, try to add some of it back almost unnecessarily, in my opinion, when we're facing, you know, and again, it's 0.3%, it's not a lot. But this is the year that last year was the year we needed to go up. This year is the year we need to go down in the budget. You know, and the other thing to a comment previously, our education money is mostly raised through property taxes. And there is well said precedent to put education money that comes from the state towards the property tax rate. We've done it before in the past. There's precedent there for it. It's not a misappropriation. And so you know, and in the past, I have been for and against doing that, depending on the situation and depending on what was going on at the time. You know, so I've seen this before. I've seen this play out before. And you know, I think the Board of Education is getting a good budget from us. So I'm not going to support this motion, and I hope that the rest of the aldermen will heed that advice as well.
Anyone else who would like to speak? Alderman Jettie?
I just want to clarify that I think this is a clarification. The money that's being made available from the state and the federal government for COVID-19 related expenses are not is not money that is replacing, or you know, it's not found money. It's not money that's replacing stuff that the school department or any other department in the city was going to spend anyway. It's to reimburse the city for expenses related to COVID-19, which were unexpected, which are being spent because of COVID-19. It's you know, I think there's a misperception that this is, you know, bonus money that we're getting, you know, to substitute for money that we needed. You know, before COVID-19, the needs of the school department, the fire department, the police department, the Department of Public Works were all there. And this budget was built to meet those needs before COVID-19. COVID-19 happened, and we've had to spend a lot of extra money that we weren't planning on. And the COVID-19 money that we're getting from the state and the federal government is to reimburse us in part, not entirely, but in part, for money that we wouldn't have spent otherwise. So at least that's my understanding.
Alderman Schmidt?
Just quickly, the COVID-19 funds will have strings attached. They will be able to be used for specific things. I'm sure ELL teachers are not part of that. The school gave us a decent budget. We passed it. This money is outside that and needed by the school if we can possibly make it. Thank you.
Okay, I think Alderman Kelley, think I see where you came to your 300K number. The 700K would be the Chromebooks, which we think the COVID money can handle. And it leaves the money for the rest of the deferred maintenance. Now, I mean, deferred, all of those things are going to be deferred. Like one of them is a preschool building that they're looking to acquire or rent, I forget which, but that all that money is going to go into contingency in the general budget until the school department asks for it. But I can see where you're coming from because if it's 700,000, all the rest of those line items could be covered as stated. So I think I'll be supporting this motion. Okay. Any other comment on the motion? Seeing none, Alderman O'Brien, please call the roll.
Alderman Clemmons,
No.
Alderman Schmidt,
Yes.
Alderman Jettie,
Yes.
Alderman Wiltshire,
Yes.
Alderman O'Brien votes no. Alderwoman Kelley,
Yes.
Alderman Dowd,
Yes.
5 yeas, 2 nays.
Okay. I'm going to interject with one small motion here that I'd like to make a motion to restore the $20,394 cut to the citywide communications budget, Department 157 on page 148, to allow for the shift of quarter time, I think it's 20% time, 0.2 time, for a police IT technician to become a backup to Mr. Mansfield with regard to communications networking and setting up the city's emergency radio equipment. If you refer to page 146, you'll see the explanation that with recent upgrades and changes in the communications infrastructure, the new network has become more challenging to troubleshoot. To assist in troubleshooting and to provide additional backup person to learn the radio communications side of information technology, we have requested an additional part-time employee that would assist with networking issues that arise. There is also software that may eventually link to the radio system that will require an IT networking specialist. This person was full-time in the police department budget. The 0.2 was taken out of the police budget and was put in the citywide communications budget, but then it was cut by the mayor. I've had discussions with the mayor, and I think he's okay with us putting that back in, because if Mr. Mansfield is a entity of one on this networking of emergency communications, and heaven forbid anything happen to him, we need to get somebody else that's up to speed on this, and this is the first step in that direction. So the motion is to add $20,394 to the citywide communications department, Department 157. Any discussion?
Yes.
Well, Alderman O'Brien beat you by a whisker.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Dowd. So, just to get my numbers, you put, this is an increase of $20,000,
$20,394, yes.
and this is intended to be a raise?
No. He's full-time in the police department. Now he's going to be like 0.8 in the police department and 0.2 in citywide communication. If we didn't add this to the communication budget, we'd have to put that 20,000 back in the police department budget, because this guy's full-time and we don't want him to be cut inadvertently, and that's what happened. So we'd like to move him 0.2 into citywide communications They work together extensively now, but it would give him more of an opportunity. I could have Deputy Testaverde talk to it if you'd like. Deputy?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. You pretty well hit the nail on the head. Right now, if God forbid, Bill Mansfield has a slips on a bar of soap in the shower, the entire city radio system, I think, could go down. And originally, when he started, it was predominantly, and I'm making up some figures here just to give you an analogy. It was about 80% knowledge in radio systems and maybe 20% in IT. And now those numbers have flip-flopped with technology over the years. And the head of our IT is about 100 feet away down the hallway from Mr. Mansfield, and they work together often. And this was, as you said, to have a little bit of redundancy, a backup, a continuity plan in case Mr. Mansfield were ever to leave us. It's always good to have someone else familiar with the systems. As far as the financial side of it, I followed what you said, Mr. Chairman, and I don't think I could say it better unless Karen Smith wanted to chime in and clarify anything.
Nope. Any other questions on this motion? Oh, there she is.
I'm all
Mrs.
set,
Smith?
thank you.
You're all set? Okay. Any other questions on this motion? Alderman Wiltshire.
I just want to say that, if anything did happen to Mr. Mansfield, we would certainly need someone to, fulfill that role until we got someone else. But I think having, a second person have some intimate knowledge of citywide communications is really important.
Yeah, he's responsible for all the radios for fire, police, emergency, and I think DPW as well. It's getting more and more technical relative to the networking and the software involved. And I think this is a very strong move on the part of the city to ensure that our communication system is up and running correctly. They're also going to be involved in the replacement of the towers up at Kessler Farm. That got delayed a little bit till next year because of the COVID-19, but that's a project in itself too. So I think this is a very important move. Any other questions or concerns on the motion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Alderman Clements.
Thank you. So is this, through your motion, is this just coming from, are we just adding money to the budget, or is this coming from the rest of SURF?
At the moment, we're just adding it to the budget because we're talking about pennies here.
I have no problem with that, I guess, but I would prefer if we can, there was money left over, I believe, in SURF.
You're free to make an amendment to the motion to take it from SURF if you'd like to do that.
I would do that. I would move that we reduce SURF by the amount you said originally. I can't remember what it was.
20,394.
That number, and then put that back into citywide communications.
Okay, you've heard the amendment to the motion. Is there any questions or concerns on the amendment? Seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll on the amendment?
Alderman Clemens,
Yes.
Alderman Schmidt,
Yes.
Alderman Jettie,
Yes.
Alderman Wiltshire,
Yes.
Alderman O'Brien votes yes. Alderwoman Kelley,
Yes.
Alderman Dowd,
Yes.
7 yeas, 0 nays.
All right. Motion before us now is to restore the 20,394 cut to the citywide communications budget, Department 157 on page 148, to allow for the shift of 20% time to the police IT technician to become a backup to Mr. Mansfield regarding communications networking and setting up city's emergency radio equipment, and fund this by taking the 20,000 394 from the monies that was going to be put into SURF. Everybody follow that? Okay. Any questions on the motion? Discussion? Seeing none, Alderman O'Brien, would you please call the roll?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Alderman Clemmons,
Yes.
Alderman Schmidt,
Yes,
Alderman Jettie,
Yes.
Alderman Wiltshire,
Yes.
Alderman O'Brien votes yes. Alderwoman Kelley,
Yes.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes. Motion passes.
0 nays.
Okay. Are there any other motions? I don't see anyone at the moment. I do have one question. I noticed that Mrs. Kleiner, Director Kleiner is on the line. I have a concern over where we're at right now with people signing up for the high deductible. I know that if a lot of people sign up for the high deductible, it saves the city a lot of money. And I'd like to know if that money is an offset to the $3 million health insurance increase. And if not, why not? Where's that money go? Director Kleiner?
Good evening, Alderman Dowd. Yes, I understand the question. We are still in the process of evaluating all of the open enrollments. On a few of the divisions that I have been able to get accurate totals on, we have not seen as much of a shift as we would have liked to see from the HMO to the high deductible health plan. I will, at the end of the week, have a better insight on the total, as we are still waiting for some open enrollments from the school department to flow in. I can tell you that we have met with Tom DeLacy and his group from Workplace Benefit Solutions. What they have suggested is that the reduction that we have seen in healthcare expense, which has resulted in a little higher of a fund balance than we would have normally seen at this time at the coming close to the fiscal year end. They strongly suggest that we keep that fund balance as is, as they expect over the coming year, as more procedures are rescheduled, that we will make up those expenditures over the next 2 years. So that's basically where we are now, and as much information as I have. But at least a couple departments I've looked at, we have not seen as high of a shift as we want to see.
So I know at one point there was a number thrown out. If everybody switched to the high deductible, we'd have another $6 million to play with. I'd like to get a readout before the final budget passes on the 23rd of where we're at, even if that money can be earmarked to reduce the tax rate further.
We will make sure that you get that, Alderman Dowd.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Any other motions? Do I have a motion for final passage of the budget as it stands at this point?
I'll make that motion, Alderman Dowd.
Alderman Wiltshire makes the motion and to pass the budget as it stands right now. And Mr. Griffin, would you give us the updated information if you can?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the new appropriation number that should be put in the amended resolution is $282,884,408.
Okay. So I'm going to paraphrase Alderman Wiltshire's motion that we currently recommend to the full Board of Aldermen the amended mayor's budget based on the motions that will appear from tonight's meeting to a number of $282,884,408. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, it's Alderman Jett.
Yeah, could I ask CFO Griffin through you, if I may, what does he know what percentage increase that would cause in the tax rate?
Right, if I may, Mr. Chairman, Alderman.
Yes.
3.79, and this is a calculation, just, I probably should have mentioned this earlier, but this was a calculation that the treasurer and myself advised the mayor as to revenue projections. So pre-COVID. So we started off, as you may recall, with a 4.5% tax increase. And you've moved that down right now, based on the best information we have, to 3.79. So as Treasurer Fredette always reminds me, this is a somewhat of a moving target, but based on what we've seen, we should be able to come in at that tax rate increase.
Okay, thank you. Could I follow up?
Sure, follow-up question?
So do you know, what the current average tax bill is in Nashua, and what that would mean to the individual taxpayer, this 3.79% increase?
If you could hold on for 1 second. So if we take that 3.79% increase, Alderman Jay, going to create a tax rate of $22.59. So if we take a $250,000 home, let's see if I can get that number. That's a $5,647 bill. That may be too high. But let me compare it to the 2176 right now. If I take the 2259 minus the 2176, the effect is $208.
All set, Alderman Jettie?
Yeah, just to make sure I understand. So, if this passes the way it is, and the rest of the projected numbers work out the way we think they might, the average homeowner in Nashua could expect an additional $208 per year for their taxes.
I'd like to change that a little bit, Alderman Jettie, if I may, for a home that's
course.
valued, for a home that's assessed at $250, the increase would be $208, and I'm not sure if that's the average home. But
Okay, thank you.
The increase would, according to my calculations, it would go from 2176 to 2259, or an 83-cent increase for 1,000.
You'll also remember, Alderman Jettie, last year, we struggled to get the tax rate under 3%. We got it to 2.99 something. And in the end, it ended up being 2.6%. So right now, they're, and I'm sure if Mr. Fredette was involved, it's a very conservative number. So I think that we have made a significant impact, and because of the $3 million healthcare hit, we don't have a lot of leeway to play with. It's $6 million over the last 2 years, and we're trying to address that because we can't continue to accept $3 million increases in healthcare every year, because they'll drive our budget crazy. I have Alderman Clee, and then did Alderman Clements want to speak after Alderman Clee?
No, I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay, Alderman Clee.
Yeah, I just have a quick question, and again, through you to Mr. Griffin. You referenced the revenue pre-COVID. I know it's going to be difficult for you to probably even answer this question, but with what has happened, do you expect a decrease in revenues? Because at this point, while they're fighting in DC as to whether or not they would fund revenue losses for state or municipalities, right now it's not looking promising. Um, However, so keeping that in mind, we've lost a lot of revenue or potential for revenue. What is your feeling as far as our revenue? Do you feel it'll be hurt, or is that a question that Mr. Fredette will have to answer?
I could give you a general picture from where I stand and where Mr. Fredette stands. Rooms and meals tax, as we reviewed on the revenue, that's a big number for the city. That's 4.5 million. And it seems like the rooms and meals took a significant hit over the last few months. Hopefully that rebounds going forward with the reopening. So that's 4.5. And then as the mayor mentioned in one of his slides, the highway tax, the gas tax that funds the highway block grant, about $1.6 million. That helps fund the paving program we have in the trust fund. So we have to watch those very closely. At this point, I'm getting, the reports that I get are from the newspapers, and there doesn't seem to be an urgency on the part of the governor's office, let's say, that we're going to have a revenue problem, but I just don't know how that can be if people aren't eating out and renting facilities and rooms. But we'll watch it very carefully. We're in good shape for fiscal 20. But we definitely have to watch the numbers in 21 and make sure we make the proper adjustments at the right time.
May I?
Sure, follow up.
Thank you. It's probably more commentary than anything. And as a person who is part-time in Concord as well as many of the others here, revenue is going to take a hit. There's no doubt about it. I see the reopening happening, but it's going to happen slow. This summer, where we get a lot of travelers and so on, I think it's going to be hit hard. More and more businesses are doing remotely, so I don't think there's going to be as much travel for them, even staying in our hotels. There's fighting in Concord. We don't know where it's going to go as to affecting the business tax and trying to reduce that again, which means less revenue for the state, which means less revenue for the municipalities. We always foot the bill for the state. So I don't want to hold too much hope that our revenues are going to bounce back. And I think we need to keep this in mind when we're doing our budget. Just a comment I had to make. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, the motion on the floor is to recommend to the full Board of Aldermen the revised mayor's budget as indicated by the motions that were taken this evening and passed to an amount of $282,884,408, or 3.79% perceived at this moment tax rate. So would the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Clement,
Yes.
Alderman Schmidt,
Yes.
Alderman Jettie,
Yes.
Alderman Wilshire,
Yes.
Alderman O'Brien votes yes. Alderwoman Kelley,
Yes.
Alderman Dowd,
Yes.
7 yeas, 0 nays.
Okay, thank you very much. The budget will be moved to the full Board of Aldermen. I believe Alderman Wilshire on the 23rd.
That's,
Or the 9th. The 9th, I think, would be too soon.
all right, that's a week away. I think that's fine.
I think it has to work its way through the process, and we'll either see it maybe on the 9th, but more likely the 23rd. It has to be passed by the 1st of July, obviously. That's when the new fiscal year starts. There is one, the only thing that we will have left for Thursday, the 4th, is there was a motion that was referred to the Budget Committee, which is on the 4th's agenda. which I have here. Let me read it to you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes?
just before you move forward on the agenda, can I just clarify? Can I formally request that the budget not come forward until the second meeting in June? Through you to the president of the board. And the reason that I would like to see that is there's a couple of things that are going to impact this budget that I think we should have better numbers on. One is the fire department contract, the fireman's contract. And then the other one is what you were talking about with Ms. Kleiner, which is the numbers for the healthcare. I think the further that we go along in the month, the closer we can get, the more savings we're going to see on that end. And it would give them time to get those numbers together. Plus, I think with the fireman's contract, we want to know what we're doing with that before we move forward with the full budget, at least.
I think you're right,
I would
Alderman
put that
Clemmons.
request in formally.
I think you're right, Alderman Clemmons, and that had a slim chance anyway of the 9th. So Alderman Wiltshire, the 23rd.
That works for me.
All right.
Thank you.
That makes sense.
All
Thank
right.
you.
So again, one of the items on the agenda for the 4th, and I think we can handle it tonight because we're not voting one way or the other on it as far as passing it or not passing it. R20-020, get the right glasses on. R20-039 was referred to the Budget Committee, which is authorizing the Pennachuck Corporation and Pennachuck Waterworks, Inc. to issue taxable bonds of up to $75 million. That really needs to go to the Pennachuck Special Water Committee and not Budget. So unless anybody has any concerns, I'm going to ask that motion be referred to the Pennachuck Special Water Committee and off of the budget agenda. Does anybody have any concerns on that? All right. So we will not have a meeting on Thursday. I'm sure that upsets everybody. And our next meeting then will not be until the public hearing on the 10th. There are 2 items on the public hearing agenda. One's the fireman's contract, and I can't for the life of me remember the other one. There's 2 public hearings, and then the budget meeting will be at 7 o'clock. It will be after that, where we'll take up the fireman's contract and the other item that comes before us for a public hearing. All right. Let's see. Is there anything else? Any general discussion? I just want to thank everybody for the time and effort we went through to put the budget together. I know we started out at a tough place because of all the health insurance costs and then get hit with the pandemic. And I think that we have taken a significant move to help the taxpayers of Nashville with relief. Are there any other remarks from any other alderman? No other remarks from alderman, no non-public. Alderman O'Brien, motion?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I make a motion to adjourn by roll call.
Please call the roll.
Alderman Clemmons,
Yes.
Alderman Schmidt,
Yes.
Alderman Jettie,
Yes.
Alderman Wiltshire,
Yes.
Alderman O'Brien votes yes. Alderwoman Kelley.
Did you hear me? Yes.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
Mr.
We're
Chairman,
adjourned at 9:14 p.m.